You've all heard some kind of variation to the story where someone says, "What if I train my sales team and they leave?" Then the other person responds, "What if you don't train them and they stay?" Depending on where you fall in that situation, sometimes you gotta sacrifice it and improve your sales reps. It's doing good to them as an individual, whether they stay or not. But if they stay, they can help you to thrive. In this episode, we're gonna talk about how organizations can better upskill their sales team. What are some specific strategies that you could learn from my good friend Will Diaz on how he's doing this and how it can help you guys as well? Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. On this episode, I have an amazing guest. His name is Will Diaz. And let me tell you a little bit about Will. Will is a sales leader that's not only speaking just speaking it and saying it, but he's actually doing it. He is a vice president of business development at Arrive Logistics. You can check them out. They're a third-party logistics company focusing on priority freight brokerage. They use a lot of technology to help them to be able to guide and work with teams and companies all across the country. Check them out. You can find more information down below to learn a little bit more about Will. But Will and I had an interesting conversation. It was around how they upskill their sales team. They spend a long time training their reps, getting them educated, especially in an industry where you could probably experience a high turnover. What are you doing to make sure you keep your team members? He's going to break down their specific strategy, steal it, apply it. And if you're an individual contributor, see if the companies that you're working with are adopting these type of policies. This podcast is designed to help individuals like you and me learn how to build stronger pipelines. We want to help you to 3 to 5x your sales pipeline, as well as to close a higher percentage of those deals, double your close rate. If that sounds like fun, if you love the show, please go ahead and subscribe, share it with one other individual. Let's dive in and get a chance to connect with Will. Will, welcome to the show.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to this, man. Fun time we had in our pre-conversation. So looking forward to chatting a little bit more. No matter what you are, no matter where you are as a sales rep, one of the things I've come to realize is that you got to continue to improve your skills. And especially when it comes towards new sales members or new team members, most companies don't get this part right. And this is why I want to tap into that. How can we help them to get onboarded properly and to start running quickly to start seeing amazing success? You guys have done that. So I want to tap into your psyche to learn some more about that. I bragged about you a little bit in a teaser. Obviously, you can do a way better job than I can. Tell us about your role right now and what you do with the org.
Yeah, so as a VP here at Arrive on our business development team, obviously I'm responsible for all of our newest BD reps as well as their ability to come in and as part of our hire, train, retain initiatives. And then ultimately responsible for the output that they can then bring into the business from new account acquisition all the way through account expansion. And that doesn't start by without getting them trained properly. So have a lot of input kind of on our training, on our development for continued education, and happy to share some of that with you today.
Go back to something you said. Tell us that strategy. You said something about is it hire, retain, or something?
Hire, train, retain. That's kind of our motto here at Arrive.
How did that come about? Why is that so important to you?
Well, for us, I mean, we're in an industry that does not essentially get taught anywhere. So first and foremost, we've got to hire the right talent that we know from just their mental makeup, from their previous experience, their work history, activities, organizations that they were a part of. We get some really good foundational skills as part of our resume and our screening process through the hiring process, our recruiting process. And then ultimately, once we get them in the building, we have to teach them a whole new language, which is the language of freight, obviously industry terminology, and then obviously our sales process, both from account acquisition all the way through account expansion, and then ultimately high volume awarded business contracts, expansion of service modes, et cetera.
So, because I think people oftentimes don't necessarily leave companies. They leave like, don't leave a particularly like, a good job. They leave a company that they feel don't have the culture or the leadership or whatnot. And to hear this in a sales organization, that's cool. And then obviously, like you said, the industry that don't get this stuff, you're making that happen. And I feel that we can learn a lot, the individual contributors on this call, listen to this pod today, as well as the leaders. So let's dive into that. One of the things you guys have instilled is a 20-week process. Talk to me a little bit more about that, because I got some
Yeah.
questions on that one.
Absolutely, yeah. So, well, actually, it used to be almost a year-long process. We've cut
My
it down
goodness,
over
Will.
the years to 20 weeks. As I said, we get talent and individuals across all of our offices from all over the country, and no one has or goes to school for free. So it starts in our classroom. It's a 4-week classroom process where they are learning everything from industry terminology, just the language of the industry and terminology of industry terms, as well as everything in terms of our roles and responsibilities inside of our business, from both business development to carrier sales, which is like our internal procurement teams, to our accounting process, obviously our client success strategy to be able to expand accounts. And then from there, then we go into an ops brokering program, which is obviously a few weeks then on our sales floor with a mentor. And then we start what we call our sales blocks, which is essentially our sales ramp up, going into actually getting released to the floor. And so we just feel that at Arrive, it's very important that you not only be able to help a customer with one shipment, but be able to help them repeatedly through the life of a load. And so the only way to learn that is through obviously understanding and gaining experience handling every different aspect of an order, and then ultimately being able to help and articulate that service to your client, and then obviously to our partners, so that we can do it repeatedly over and over again. And then once you're into your sales blocks, you're really working with your mentor on new account acquisition, pipeline building, some of the more foundational things that most people are used to with obviously a sales process.
4 weeks in classroom. They're not touching the phones.
They're not touching the phones. They're in classroom, literally just learning.
I know some of the leaders listening to this. They're like, what, a month? That's costly.
Yeah.
I think you already explained the justification behind that already, right? But maybe go a little bit deeper into that. Like, what are some of the results you've seen from people going through that extensive learning period without touching a phone for a month?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us, which is really important and foundational, is that you can't, essentially sell what you really don't know. We sell a service in our business.
Yeah.
We don't own trucks. We don't own warehouses. We don't own the freight. We're an intermediary. So for us, you really have to have the experience of just kind of handling an order, really providing the service to your client. And so for us, that 20 weeks of learning just what goes into the process, what goes into how to properly track an order, how to communicate a quote, how to deal with a challenge, an issue, or a problem, how to schedule an order, that just gives you different touch points by which you're going to clearly be able to see like how somebody is grasping something very quickly or where they might need some help. But when they then go onto the sales blocks, they actually start selling, arrive to their prospecting list. All of a sudden now they feel comfortable talking through how we can service them, because that's all we're doing. We're a service provider. We're not a product manufacturer. And so, yes, it is costly. It does require some investment of capital. And I want to be mindful of the fact that not everyone has the ability just to have a 20-week program or a 4-week classroom program, but where and when you can have people dive into understanding whatever your product or your service is, that's going to be a better end result. And that's going to lead to faster starts with clients, and clients ultimately not stop starting up and down the value chain as you go forward. They're going to have, obviously, theoretically see you more continuously being able to execute faster and with more consistency, possibly than one of your peers, because your people obviously know the service and feel the service that they're presenting and providing, not just, I was told to sell, like, I'll just make it up, whatever I think it should be. So that's where we kind of focus.
So 2 questions along with that, Will. One, when we talked previously, you talked about how much the leader is involved in this process. So why don't you talk to that a little bit? And then I'll have a follow-up question right along that. Maybe you can justify, answer both of them at the same time. But is how do you justify the leader's time to be involved in that as well? So,
Yeah, I mean, for us, learning, development, mentorship is kind of continuous throughout the business. I think if I've said this in other places, but if you're waiting for your leaders, if everyone's just waiting for a leader to do the training, L&D, director, VP, manager, you're going to be waiting forever, right? And so we think it's very, very important that our leaders get up from out of their desk, and for our leaders to get out of their offices and get onto our sales floor. We're in an industry that you can only learn by doing. And so part of doing is sometimes trial and error. It's also coaching people through different conversations, whether that's just listening to their sales calls, whether that's seeing how they operate within our TMS. We can show people tips, tricks, ways to do it faster, better. Hey, Donald, you said this, you could have said that. That might obviously have gotten you, through that objection a little bit better. And so I think it's just always been very foundational to us that our leaders do a really good job being a player development coach. Because at the end of the day, if you're a leader, you're a coach. That's what you should be. If you really want to just focus on numbers, and then I think you should just be an individual contributor, just focusing on the numbers. But the way that your people develop and how they're ultimately going to start seeing result is going to be an inflection of how much engagement did they get from you and how intentional was it. If it's really just bits and pieces and not from consistent action, they're going to be a little bit disjointed from whatever your sales process is, because ultimately they're learning from themselves. They're not really learning from anybody that can show them the way.
so logistically, how do you pull that off? Like how? I mean, so back up to the very first question: how much time is a leader dedicating towards this education on your
Yeah.
team?
So, I mean, in our program, right, our L&D team is heavily involved in the classroom. Once they come onto the floor, everybody is assigned a mentor. So this is an experienced
Gotcha.
seller that's already ahead of them in their process. So they're already going to see the person who's doing the job every single day. We then surround them with associate managers and then sales managers, directors, VPs, who have different touch points, either scheduled or unscheduled throughout the day, as well as throughout the weeks and months while they're in training. And this can be everything from just quick little breakout sessions on the floor to group sessions in a classroom setting or in a presentation about a different service mode. But from the time aspect, I think it's important for our associate managers, who are really our engaged player development coaches. I mean, all day. I mean, that's all they do. They're on the floor all day, jumping from rep to rep, listening to call, helping somebody go through and build a pipeline list, really look at their pipeline, and then sometimes do a pipeline review and a scrub, expand it or take things away. So it's kind of continuous. Everyone then ultimately, as they go through, from week 1 down to week 4, from week 4 to week 8 or 10 or 12, they're developing more and more and more. And so clearly, right, that you give them a little bit more leash, they obviously can take on more themselves. But hopefully by the end of their training program, they feel really comfortable with the program, and then can articulate, what Arrive's service capabilities are to our clients and to their prospects.
So a leader's listening to this, and she's probably thinking, "Man, I like what I'm hearing. What advice would you give to someone specifically around this training?" You already mentioned that obviously everyone's situation is going to be different. Company may
Sure.
not be able to dedicate 20 weeks, but the principle behind it of dedicating something or piecemealing it, whatever, you got to do it.
Yeah.
What advice would you
I
give to
mean,
that leader?
I think that community effect is critical. We think it's foundational for us
Yeah,
here
I
at
like
Arrive.
that.
Again, we want to build really, really good business people. We're doing freight as business people. We're not trying to build just great freight brokers. We want to build good business people, and good business people obviously are able to articulate not only the sales process of the service, but they're also taking themselves, sometimes doing an internal look at themselves as to, how professional I am. How am I setting my time? Am I committing to time on my calendar? Am I committing time to prospecting, to sales, account acquisition, to calls? Sometimes that's just foundational, and people just need to, as leaders, just need to put that in front of their sellers as a kind of, hey, this is how we do things, right? Because people, if you don't tell them, they'll just go off and do their own thing and think they're doing it okay. Depending on every company and everyone's different resources, I think always ask yourself, are we being intentional? Are we being engaged? If we're intentionally engaging our people, they're going to intentionally engage our prospects. Those prospects are going to feel that intensity. If they're going through their motions, if we're not really, supporting our people, to expect that they can support our clients, it's kind of, hope as a strategy, which, as we all know in sales, hope is not a strategy. So that's kind of how I think about it. Just really invest in the community of support and try to leverage each person on your team, because everybody has something to give. I think it's always important. We always say, wow, it's great, pay it forward, pay it backward. Well, just do that, and largely it works out.
Yeah. Will, we talked a little bit about understanding the industry insights in our pre-call. You alluded to that. I want to go a little bit deeper into that. So really digesting and understanding, because I've worked in industries before where it's like you come in and they give you the skimp off the top, like, this is what we do, this is how we do it. Go watch YouTube videos, figure it out. God bless you, but make the calls, make the money.
Yeah,
You mentioned something else that it is just profound. And I know it's not just, I don't want to make it just seem like hyperbole or just saying it just to say it, but the fact that you said you're creating business people who so happen to sell freight, that's a critical side, man. I teach a class at my alma mater, and what I try to help all the students, all the sellers understand that I work with, I'm like, you're not a salesperson, you're a business consultant. And the
that's
one
right.
who can understand business, understand how to finance, understand the language of business, understand analytics, are going to be way better seller than somebody who think they can do a quick Ben Franklin close, or
Yep,
assumption
that's right.
close, and you gotta close the deal.
Yeah.
Go into that a little bit more. I'm a new rep for your team. What's the philosophy when it comes to helping me understand insights, understanding the industry and its insights?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for us, as a business person, right, it's, what you what you put out is what you're going to receive, right? And
Uh
so,
huh.
everything from, I like to look at our reps, and, we talk about an L&D, what do you look like on your LinkedIn profile? How does that, I mean, what does that advertise? If you were a product and I put you on the shelf at Home Depot or at your local grocery store, what would the packaging look like? And so from there, I mean, a lot of people, if you don't think that they're not going to look at your LinkedIn, and once you outreach them or send them an email or some in-mail on LinkedIn, they're going to check what do they see, right? Um, Ultimately, once they talk to you, how does it feel? Right? How does it sound? How does it feel? Is it intentional? Is it engaging? Is it committed? Do you actually know your service? Do you know your organization? Do you know your story? Do you know where and why you're calling them? Right? What is the reason? What is the purpose for the call? For so many people, they're making dials and hoping that someone's going to answer the phone, yet that person answers and they completely freeze. And that, to me, is just a byproduct of just being underprepared or not prepared at all, right? And so that's the psychology, I guess, as you said earlier, of being a good business person. Is I'm here every single day to invest my time, which is the opportunity cost of the one resource none of us get back every single day. And if I'm going to take that time seriously, I need to make sure that I am prepared and ready to have a conversation, to engage anyone. That doesn't mean I'm going to land every prospect on the first call, the 15th call, the 20th call. But when I talk to that individual, they are going to know that when they talk to me, it literally sounds, feels, and it is different than the 40 other people that called that day. And that's the impression I'm trying to leave them with. Hopefully it leaves somebody in an environment where they're like, whoa, okay, that was different. Arrive, that was
Hmm.
different. I really liked what I heard from Will. I hadn't really thought of Arrive as a, and so for us, it's really, as part of our business now, we're operating, approximately 4,500 plus orders a day. I mean, we probably, in terms of
My
freight that we
goodness.
manage, it's a lot under management on a daily basis. And if they like the person plus the company and the services that we offer, I feel we're going to put ourselves in a great position. And that's really what I try to instill in our reps from the day they come into the business.
Time and time again, and you go back to the point you just shot there about um, the making that call. If I got on a call with you, I'm not gonna your sales rep is not calling one person one time ever. I call you. I had a great experience with you. I have nothing to push right now. Not interested. Not going to be a fit no matter what it is. But I'm like, dang. he knows his stuff. He really knew our, what's going on in industry.
That's right.
You're in the back of my mind. So then now the next time, maybe 3 months later or whatever, one of your reps hit me up
Yep.
again, we have something. It's you guys win the business, and you can probably win business sometimes, even though you're not the cheapest, because of the simple fact they know that you know your stuff and you're going to get it done. Like there's no ambiguity in that. But I don't
Well,
know.
if you're selling on price, and again, every industry is different, but if you're selling on
Yeah.
price, you're really going to be behind the people that are actually selling
Yeah.
value. Again, if I always tell everybody, I actually just talked to a training class this morning, right? Let's
Yeah.
think about this. As business people, do we buy any different as a business person than we would as a consumer? No.
No.
Right? It's got to have value, right? It's got to be a fair price for the value that I feel I'm receiving. But typically, if I'm buying only on price, I'm more than likely buying potentially a inferior quality of service or product, right?
Yeah.
And I just need to understand. Now, again, as business people, we make investments, right? We might start with a client and say, you know what, this is our first big opportunity. We're maybe not going to get the best opportunities from this new client, but we need to selectively invest because we feel once we can get in, that might be the ticket for us to grow immensely from there. Wonderful. That's not every company's got to make those different decisions depending on the economics of their business.
The last question I really have is around, I'm a sales rep. I don't have this in my company. You mentioned something at the top that, individuals should take the initiatives and so forth. I really want to do this, Will. I want to make this change. I want to do well. You mentioned insights. How that could be ambiguous for somebody that hears it, or how do I learn my industry insights? Every industry is going to be the same, but there's probably ways that you teach your sellers.
Yep.
Pretend you're coaching me now. If I was in that case, what would you tell me? And it's not an industry you have. I'm selling SaaS. Let's say that.
Yeah.
How would you help me to go and find industry insights so I can start taking that stuff and consume it to come increase my business acumen?
I mean, again, foundational, no matter
Yeah.
if it's trade or SaaS or technology, whatever it may be. I mean, just know what's going on in the economy, right? Like know what's going on in the Wall Street Journal, know what's going on CNBC or Fox Business. I listen to Fox Business or CNBC probably every time to work, and I have it on in my office, right? And that doesn't mean that I'm a savant in investing or into stock picking, but I want to know what's going on in energy markets. I want to know what's going on in the economy. Did the economy add jobs? Did it lose jobs? Right? What's the unemployment rate? The big reason for that is primarily because I just want to be able to have ammunition for conversation with new clients. I'm not always just going to be able to talk to prospects about just freight or just technology or SaaS. I need to know what's the economics potentially of their business, right? If they're a business that's impacted by interest rates in housing and in home loans and home building, right? I should know, I don't need to go down a 30,000 foot rabbit hole, but I need to have some general insight on what's going on in that market. And so I think the big thing everybody can do is just educate themselves as much as possible. And there's tons of free resources available, listening to podcasts like this, finding other ones, being open and willing. And then once you get in and you start actually gaining insights from all of these resources, start knocking on the doors of your leadership team. Start actually looking and finding ways to get access to a mentor inside your company. Now, if you're not physically in the office and you can't do it, physically and in person, maybe ping a senior leader or someone in your organization who, hey, can I grab 15 minutes of coffee with you, on Friday or on Monday afternoon? Everybody is always getting, fatigue from meetings, from Zooms, from calls. And sometimes people just need to talk to another human. And that's a great place to just ask questions, get feedback. Hey, am I doing this correctly? What would you do differently? And so that to me is kind of where you can grab the most insight and really set yourself up for success.
Love it, man. If folks are listening to this episode, want to get in touch with you to learn about your company or just to connect with you, Will, maybe they're interested in working for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did it go? There you go, guys. How did it go about connecting with you?
So Will Diaz on LinkedIn, arrivallogistics.com. If you go on LinkedIn, you type Will Diaz, you'll probably find me pop up pretty quickly. And then wdiaz at arrivallogistics.com if somebody wants to, inquire. But our website is the best way to look at all of our available opportunities across the country. We're really expanding our footprint And Donald, this was fantastic. I really want to thank you for having us. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop comments, questions on LinkedIn, email me. Happy to provide anything I can to make us all better salespeople and build better teams.
I appreciate you, Will. Thank you so much, man. Much love.
Wonderful. Thanks.
That was Will Diaz. And if you haven't done so already, go back and connect with them on LinkedIn. Check out what they're doing over there and see if what the principles that they're applying can help you. I mean, if it makes sense for you to join their team, so be it. And if you're a sales leader, feel free to connect with them to glean some more insights about their particular process. I mean, they spend a long time here teaching the individual sales reps, going through their content. I mean, when I saw this on my notes, when we were talking about it, I was like, this is crazy. It's nuts. So anyways, great stuff that they're doing. Take it and apply it. I would love to hear from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Donald C. Kelly, Donald C. Kelly. You can also find me on Instagram, Donald C. Kelly, or on TikTok, Donald C. Kelly. And tell me, how long is your training process internally in your organization? I'd love to hear that. As always, check out our sponsors. They give me amazing things that you could take advantage of, and I've connected with them so they can create great deals for you. As always, we want to help you to 3 to 5x your sales pipeline. We want you to be able to close twice as many deals, but most importantly, we want to raise your level of thinking and go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching.